Okay, this meeting is being recorded. Got it.
Got it. And looks like we are live.
We are live. Let me just close out of here.
We are live on Karen Lynch, the Life Liberator. I love saying that. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm excited about today's topic, Karen. I'm excited to talk to your group, and I have some questions for you, actually.
Yes, I have my coffee, if that's what you're going to ask me.
Well, I know you do, and I have mine as well, and my matching mug and chair. Yeah. So, all right. Well, welcome everybody. We are back together. Karen and I do these lives together on Life Liberator every couple weeks or so on her page when we have something fun to discuss. And today we're going to talk about the hybrid office. So Karen, why don't you kick off with why we even chose this topic to discuss and what your thoughts are, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
All right, I just got a text message I wanted to reply to. Sorry. Now I can focus.
Are you multitasking?
I was multitasking. So, the hybrid office, if we think about, before pre-pandemic, and I'm going to think back to my corporate world, when I was working in the corporate world and information asset management and protection, the exciting, glamorous, sexy world, I would always work remotely 1 or 2 days a week. And I loved that time because it allowed me to really focus on more like task work, things that required full attention, no collaboration. And so, I was a manager and not everybody had that opportunity. When the pandemic rolled around, everybody was kind of forced, well, not kind of, they were forced to work at home if they had that kind of a job. And then with the pandemic restrictions lifting in various, at various different times and in different, depending on what the office was or the state you were in at different times, people were going back to the office slowly but then also working at home. So instead of being like, oh, I have a remote day at home, it was more hybrid. I'm doing some work at home, I'm doing some work at the office. And so I think that culture really changed and when before it was the exception, now it's become kind of the rule in a lot of organizations that employees are working remotely and they're coming into the office. So we call it the hybrid office.
Yeah, agree. And I think one of the differences from when you did it versus now is that way back then, pre-pandemic, seems like so long ago, that it was like when you're working at home, you're working at home. You're sitting on the couch or you're sitting at the dining room table. It's like you're just working at home. You have a home day. And now people were forced to have dedicated workspaces at home.
Right.
You had, 2 people in the house working, or 3 if you have an older child in the home that has a job or something. And then you also had the schools, the online school set up for your kids. Yep. And so there's these, now the kids are back in school, but there's still these dedicated home office spaces, which I think is a good thing in a way, that became less just the corner of the living room or dining room table, and now an actual, this is my workspace. So right. Yeah, which I think is good. I think it's better for productivity.
Right. It definitely is more, it's clearly more accepted now than it was. When I worked from home, it would be like, are you doing laundry? The joke is kind of like, yeah, you can throw the load of laundry and it would never get done. It'd be sitting there all day because you're focused on working. You have that time. I really think that, at that time, I really treasured that time, and I couldn't figure out why. It maybe because it was special, but it really, looking back now, it boiled down to, it was so productive for me because that was it. I had one day, blinders on, focused, not taking calls and just focused on getting whatever that task was. But I can't even imagine, and I wasn't working in the corporate world during the pandemic. I was working on my own, but I can't imagine going from an office to being at home 5 days a week. My husband did it for over a year. I actually had to send him back to the office.
Kicking and screaming.
Well, yeah. And he's an introvert, so he loved being at home. But honestly, there's such a disconnect, I think, in so many different ways. Like, he was still a member of the team. He was still doing, the work. But the collaboration on a Zoom call, and he's in construction, is very different than being side by side with somebody you work with, right? So I think that it's definitely more acceptable now, but it's definitely more balanced than it was when I was doing it, or that automatic 5 days full-time at home during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah. It's interesting because I did it in the late 90s. I mean, way before a lot of people were doing it. And it was, oh, I loved it. And I was in family counseling. So I was doing I was in the family counseling industry. And so that was intensive in-home counseling. So I really worked from my car and then going to people's homes. But then after that, I decided I wanted to be in the office. I wanted to actually switch from the counselor role to an admin role. Which a lot of people at the time, it's so funny looking back, a lot of people at the time were on the track for marriage and family therapy. They were getting their masters in marriage and family therapy. That was the goal. And here I was going to become an office manager, going to work in the office.
Right.
And at the time they're like, Andrea, are you crazy? What are you doing? But then that change that seemed like a backwards movement at the time, it led to now, Productive Environment Institute and working with Barbara and doing what I love. So it was a good change. But I remember, oh my gosh, I had a new boss that started working, and I would just like rush as fast as I could to the office because she would be calling the office phone at 8 o'clock on the dot. Yeah. And I would I'd be like unlocking the door and coming in, and then the phone's ringing and I know it's her, and I can't sound like I'm rushing when I get the phone, so I'm like, hello. And I hated that. And so I was like, how am I got to figure out how to negotiate a work at home situation, because I really wanted it. And the work I was doing, I could do at home. So anyway, we ended up hiring somebody else that took over like the office manager stuff. And I was more project manager. So it was easier for me to negotiate that.
Right.
But I have to say, a lot of people, not everybody likes to work at home, and not everybody wants to work at home. I personally love it. I can't imagine going into an office and having the distractions I can't handle. But it's not for everybody. And people were forced into it, with the pandemic. And now some people are happy to go back to the office and some people are not. But there's a lot of people in the middle that are doing both.
Right.
While we're here, we're talking about the hybrid office.
Right.
It's interesting when I was researching, and, look, if you Google hybrid office, a lot of the discussion is about collaboration, culture, how the corporate offices are set up for that. It's more about that than it is about having your information at your fingertips, knowing where to find things when you need it. A shared work, shared drives, or, sharing information and things like that. So I thought that was interesting that there wasn't much on that out there. Like, we focus on that, but I didn't see anything out there. Did you?
No, it's really interesting. I'm going to go back to what you said earlier about, like, I can't imagine going into an office. Yeah. I am definitely one that I love working from home. Mm-hmm. But I also love being around people, and I need a balance of both. And I think that, for me, when we talk about the collaboration, I love collaborating. You and I collaborate on Zoom, we're on opposite sides of the coast. I get that. But if I didn't have that, or going in to see clients or people, I would know what to do with myself, because for me, working at home has always been like, I'm doing the task stuff. I'm doing the stuff that really is a lot of, like the duck on the pond, right? You see me floating, but the legs are, that's my task stuff. I'm doing it all, but, and that's the focus. I think that the collaboration for me is, the face-to-face with people. I get more, it's the energy that I pick up, and the energy from the client. I can't imagine not having that. And now I'm forgetting what your question was about, what I'm seeing out there.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Well,
you're more the norm. I think you're more.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really is, the office is like the social anchor, right? Mm-hmm. It really is kind of the social anchor. Even like, I don't want to keep dragging my husband into it, but he is an introvert, but even he benefits from having that, having lunch with a couple of the guys, and collaborating and doing his thing, and then coming home. And on the flip side, if something were to happen where, I needed him to, work from home, it's so much easier to say, can you just work from home tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I think, I had him on my list. You keep bringing him in, but I actually had him on my list but issues to ask you about. Because you did that. You guys just had a lot of flooding in your area in San Bay Area, right?
Mhm.
And so he had to work at home for a couple of days because you had trees down and the roadways were blocked and you're like, hey, can you work at home, and so he did. And so that was the perfect example of somebody with a hybrid office. Like he primarily goes into the office, but he is able to work at home. So what were some of the things that he did or needed to do to be able to have what he needed? Is everything online, or did he have physical things?
Yeah, so it's funny. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go back to like when I was working from home, and that was 10 or 12 years ago.
Mhm.
Back then, it was more like this really, I feel that it was kind of, I was doing a lot more work, working really harder. Like I wasn't putting in an 8-hour day, I was putting in a 12-hour day, because there's something that you kind of feel guilty about, this working from home, and you got to, people think you're sitting at home in your bunny slippers, and, so you have to really go above and beyond. And then fast forward to now, it really is, like for my husband's, in his case, he just has to look at his schedule and say, okay, how many Zoom calls do I have? Do I need to, get into AutoCAD? What am I going to do? Or what kind of work can I? So it's a little bit more planning. It isn't just like, I'm going to open my laptop and start working. It really becomes, I think that you become very specific and deliberate about the work that you're going to do, and you make a plan and you do it. And it really is not because, it's just because you want to be efficient with your time. And it's not a 12-hour workday. It truly is an 8-hour workday, or maybe it's a 6-hour workday, but whatever those tasks are, or that plan is, he just needs to know what was, coming on the schedule for him the next 2 days. If they're already face-to-face meetings or whatever. And if not, it was just really, it was definitely more strategic and planned.
Yeah. Got you. Okay. So just kind of knowing what resources you would need.
Mhm.
And there's a term that Barbara has had for years for when we would go into it, when we go into an office and do what we call a productive environment day, where we work with the staff in their office and creating something called a centrally understood filing system.
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be, it's where it's like everybody has their own files in their own office. Now that's different now with these hybrid, because a lot of people don't have a lot of paper files. And if they do, there's tools, then we have a great tool for that, like carrying things back and forth between, the home office and the other office. But, where was I going with that? I just lost my train of thought. But the what was I saying, Karen? I just
Probably the central filing system.
thank you. Centrally understood filing system. Thank you. Where if there still is a brick and mortar office space, that there are shared files there, and you need to have a system. So if somebody needs something and somebody else, it's taken out, kind of like a library card, they know where it is, they know how to find it. So that's where our productive environment finding system is implemented into an office. It doesn't have to necessarily be one person. It could be a centrally understood filing system, which for an example of that would be, it's not filing as far as files, but like the resource closet, where the office supplies and things like, how people can find things in there instead of having to end up, get duplicating everything because they can't find what they need that it's in there. So anyway, those are some things. And then I think with so many people working at home now, and maybe these aren't corporate people, it's just, home-based business, people came home and started a business during COVID.
Right.
And they're staying home. They have their business at home now. And they don't, or they don't want to go back to the office, and they're not being forced. So there's some companies that aren't forcing that. And so making sure that they have the things that they need at their fingertips. And that's where our productive environment finding system comes in so perfectly.
Right.
Because if your boss calls or your client calls, you can just quickly put your hands on things, physical and digital. And so that's why I love so much that we are the bridge between the physical and the digital files that you guys have.
Right. And the other thing is, if you could touch on, I have a client started her own business, and, her challenge is, I've got all this stuff. I've got all this information that, if I had been working for a company would be, would stay at the company. Right. Now she's like, it's all over my living room table because I don't want to bring it to my office. Yeah. Because my office is full of all my personal papers and all that. And it's like, so, she was working in 2 different spots. The dining room table was overrun with all of the quotes, the proposals, the billing, everything. And it couldn't even have a family meal there because she didn't know how to set up her home office to be able to incorporate both and be able to manage access, and put things away where they're supposed to, or find them. And the system, when I talk about implementing a system that works for the home office, for the business of life, or just for your business, they do play well together. Like they play well together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what we're talking about, you guys, when we say the home office for the business of life, you have personal things, you have bills to pay, you have taxes to do, you have, those of you that have children in school, you have papers to sign and things, whatever. So you have, whether you have a business or not, you have the business of life. And so, we help people set up a command center for managing life, basically. So, when we say home office, that can be the end of your dining room table or a corner of the kitchen, whatever you have, but creating a dedicated space for that. But that's a good point, Karen, because now there are people who have businesses, myself, you too. We have our own business, we have a dedicated office, and we have the business of life. And so blending those two together, is what is necessary and pretty simple to do with our finding system.
Right. Well, and in my case, and this really well, Andrea, I'm managing my father's business.
Yes.
So I've got my business, my father's business, and I've got, managing my family life. So it really is, I've got three, but it's all in the system. I can access it and, and find things without, losing my hair.
Yes.
My son, who's almost 21 in college, says, I'm going to text him on, I know it's going to be on, what is today, the 28th. So on May 1st, he's going to get a text from me to say, just a reminder to change your toothbrush. And he's like, how do I remember to do that? Because that is incorporated into my home office for the business of life. Remind my son to change his toothbrush. It's kind of silly, but those things happen. The pandemic, if we're just talking about the pandemic, look at the things that didn't happen during the pandemic because of things being shut down. People weren't seeing their physicians. They weren't getting their regular lab results. So, this allows you, working from home, bringing this all in, you can take a step back and look at how you want your life to be, not just the professional, but also the personal, what you're going to do to take care of yourself. I find that I have a lot more time to take care of myself, and be on track with these things.
I love that. Yeah. And that's with the finding system. For those of you that aren't familiar, Barbara Hemphill is the author of Taming the Paper Tiger book series. She created this system over 40 years ago. Basically, it's a file index for your physical file. So if you search for something on Google, you just type in a keyword that you're looking for, right? And it comes up on Google. Well, we actually can create that in your physical filing cabinet. So that's why, Karen, you've got 3 different entities that you're managing, but you've got one file index. And if whatever you're looking for, you just type in that search and it tells you it's not scanned. When I say that, a lot of people think, oh yeah, you scan it. No. We're talking about physical things that you do end up keeping. The paperless office is not 100% here yet. So there are still physical things, right? So the file index is on the computer, but it searches your physical files, and you wonder how that happens, but that's a process that we teach. So go ahead, Karen.
Well, I was going to say, so it's not just the physical, it's the electronic files. Sure. And in your case, I'm going to put you on the spot and embarrass you with your spice, right?
My spices.
Your spices are organized. But I was talking to a client. I have a client who's a retired judge, and I was coaching her the other day, and we're going through and setting up her system. And, one of the things we talked about, she has parents who are no longer alive, and she has all of these boxes and boxes of photos. And, it's so nice. I said, this is something that we can incorporate into the system as well. So, until she gets ready, she can, if she knows what's in these boxes, then we can incorporate that into the system. That box 1 is this, box 5 is this. Yes. And so she's able to and the look on her face when I told her that, she's like, oh, it was, there's a plan. And it's not that, it's not the perfect organization right now, but at least she's got some control over those 20 some odd boxes of photos that she's like, even, every time I look over, it causes anxiety, but we're incorporating those into the system. And we kind of have a very high view of how they're going to be organized until she can actually go through them. So
there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's exciting. I get excited.
It is. It is. And I was talking to a new client yesterday or one day this week, and she's a therapist.
Mhm.
And she had worked in as a therapist in a company before the pandemic. She came home and has been, working out of her home, but not as a therapist. And now in 2023, she's deciding she wants to go into private practice and be able to work from her home office and do telehealth,
Oh, yes.
teletherapy. And so, but she feels very disorganized in her office. She used her laptop camera to show me around, the office, and she had piles because, we put things in piles when we were afraid we we're going to forget about them or whatever. And, so I was like, well, tell me about this pile, or these are actions. These are things I need to do that I just haven't gotten to, but I don't want to lose them. So piles end up everywhere. And I asked her what her vision was. I said, what is your vision for when you walk into your space? And, what can you do? What will you be able to do in here that you can't do now? And she said she envisions like all the piles gone, but that created anxiety of not knowing where they were. And so we talked about being able to find anything that she was looking for. So one of her visions is to be able to be on a Zoom, a telehealth Zoom with a client or patient. And if they need a specific resource, like if they're ADD or whatever the issue is, that she can quickly put her fingers on a resource that she can share with them. And she has a lot of physical, yes, you can do online stuff, but she has a lot of physical articles, things that she's collected through the years that are valuable. And so we talked about being able to do it, because right now she's shuffling through stuff like, I knew I had this somewhere, but to be able to type in ADD and for it to tell you it's in your filing cabinet, behind your desk, bottom drawer, third file back. I mean, that's specific.
That's a game changer. I have a client who is a speech therapist, and I can't tell you, when we were going through her papers, how many times she's like, oh, I was looking for that, or I have, I'm making copies of this particular document, but she had like that same document in like 10 different spots. And she's like, what a waste of paper. And it's so overwhelming. It was overwhelming to her. And, the guilt and the shame she had of wasting and killing trees to hold on to that. But, teachers, therapists, people that are accessing those resources in physical format, and there's still a lot of that physical format or electronic. The system works with both physical and electronic. But to be able to have that at your fingertips and say, okay, or I'll get it to you in a minute when we're done, to be able to go find it and send it. It's so rewarding. And so it's such a great feeling to say, okay, I know exactly where to look.
Exactly. That was her vision, to be able to feel confident with her Zoom background and for, to be able to find the resources for her patients immediately. And she said she would feel more professional. Like right now, she just feels overwhelmed. And when she walks into her office and she just doesn't know what to do. So she fritters the day away. Like you sit down at your desk and you're like, check your email. And then you go down a rabbit hole and you check social media. There's another rabbit hole, and just not having a plan, not having an action system. So we talked about with our home office for the business of life, we talked about the 3 types of actions and the tools needed. One of them we've talked about on your live before is the Swift file solution. That's just one. That's dated actions. And there's 2 other action systems that are part of that process. And that alone, just that alone, without even getting to the other files and things to keep, that alone, we have found can save you 1 day a week. If you work 5 days a week, you can go down to a 4-day work week.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I just lost my train of thought, but it's.
I did it too. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, it's not just that, but there's something, when you go into an office or even a home with too much stuff, right? It's so distracting on the subconscious. But just to be able to go into and work with a client and just help educate them in the decision-making process, that 15 minutes of just showing them and walking them through how to make decisions on paper, or how to make decisions on email, or how to make a decision on whether or not to keep that file, right, that electronic file, you know, once we go through and coach them and ask questions and give them the guidelines about this is, you know, these are the things you want to ask yourself before you hit delete on the, you know, email or on the file or put it in the shredder. It's empowering, and it's such a great feeling. And I think everybody, I mean, a lot of people decluttered during COVID, and it's such a good feeling to just get rid of stuff and have freedom. And, you know, it's the same feeling that you get when you go through your email or your, you know, electronic file folders or your paper documents to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people are just taking that piece of paper and they are clutter is postponed decisions.
Yeah.
Barbara, they are just setting it aside and just leaving it until whenever, you know.
Yeah.
So, and so much money, time and money is lost, you know, and I had a client that had boxes and boxes of mail. I'm like, you know, tell me what's going on here. They just didn't have time. They had 2 young kids and they just throw them. Well, everything is on auto pay.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of look at it.
Yeah. Well, even if it's on auto pay, like you said, certainly look at it. But in the meantime, even if you're not looking, what's happening to it? It's piling up.
Right.
And
it's piling up.
It's costing you. It's costing you time. It's costing you space. It's certainly costing you energy because you're like, I really got to get to that.
Right.
And it could potentially be costing you money because if there is an error with the auto pay and then you end up with a late charge because that you didn't realize.
Right.
Yeah. So dealing with that, having a command center to be able to process that mail. In fact, one of our quotes is today's mail is tomorrow's file.
Yep.
So having a system in place to deal with the new stuff coming in, otherwise it's just going to pile up even more and more and more.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So going back to the hybrid office, we both just love this. I mean, I love this topic of just getting paper organized and things tamed. You know, I think that we're going to be seeing more and more. We're already seeing this in the Bay Area, more people going back into the office, but definitely with more structure, not just 100% work from home. I'm in the office. I'm in the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week, home the other 2. And, you know, how productive is that, right? Or, you know, if you're home, it's like going to the 4-day work week. You know, you can be more efficient at home if you're able to plan and be organized and be very deliberate about the work you're going to do. And I think that we do a really good job, you know, coaching clients to get to that point.
I agree. I agree. And one of the terms I learned when I was researching for this topic is, I've never heard it before, res-immersial.
I've not heard that term.
Yeah, residential and commercial, because what's happening in the corporate offices, at least, they want people to come back into the office, even if it's not 100% full time. But what they're doing, they're realizing that we've gotten used to being at home and working on the couch if we want to, or at the dining room table, or popping around. I heard somewhere somebody called it popcorn workspaces. Working in a coffee shop today, working on the couch today, working on the deck today, you know, what popcorning. And so to be able to, what they've done is in these corporate offices, they're redesigning how they are. They're not just cubicles or offices with doors closed. They have area with couches. They have area with, you know, counter height or bar height workspaces where people can walk around. And then there's the concept of a hot desk. You don't have a dedicated desk. It's your desk. Whoever gets there first gets the desk, basically.
Right. I think what I love about this, okay, so again, my husband being in construction, you know, years ago, and he runs large electrical projects. Years ago, you know, one of the clients was bringing, you know, everybody into like 10 floors, you know, downtown San Francisco. And he was telling me like the cubes are all, you know, have gone for, and he used to tell me all these statistics. Cubes used to be, you know, 10 by 10, and they went to 8 by 8 or whatever they were, or they're doubling up. He would always talk to me about the cube size and how they're trying to get more people, right, in that dense real estate. And now, you know, you fast forward to post-COVID. I mean, I went into his office and they've opened up the workspace. So it is open, but there's some privacy. You can collaborate. And the office that they set up is a temporary office, and it's beautiful at the project site he's on. It's gorgeous, but the lunchroom, and they've created these little areas specifically for The collaboration and kind
Yeah.
of like the water cooler talk and
Like pods, little pod.
like pods, right, right. And it's definitely, people seem happier because they are, they have the privacy that they need, but they can collaborate openly. And a
Yeah.
lot of, the sit stand desks. And so it's definitely a much better environment than it was when you and I were in the corporate world.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I agree. So I think I know I keep going back to the home office or the business of life, but I feel like that's where it starts. That's where, like, because even if you're going back and forth between offices or you're not, you're just stabilized at home, having a home office for the business of life is a kind of a grounding place. It's like, okay, I have this space, I can sit down, I can focus. Everything else can be cluttered. You can deal with that stuff later, but at least you have this one space that you can sit down and have a clear mind and say, okay, I have to pay bills today, or I have to work on a project today, and I can access anything that I need in seconds, and then I can put it back because I have a system for where it goes. Whether you, like I said, start there, even if you're going out into another office, going to a commercial building or not. Having that dedicated space for you, whether it's just the home office for the business of life or the home office for business of life plus work, plus business, whatever that is. So yeah, I think we'll wrap up with that, and I'll let you obviously give any closing thoughts, but if, we'll post a link in the chat or in the comments here on Facebook. We are offering a live 4-week boot camp on the home office for the business of life. So again, whether you're working at home 100% or part of the hybrid office environment, having a stabilized place at home that is kind of your foundational, workspace is really critical. So definitely check it out and message Karen if you have any questions. You can message her here on Facebook on the Life Liberator page. So how would you have anything you want to wrap up with, Karen?
No, I think that the boot camp is a fantastic way to really get the foundation built for just getting the home office set up so that you're working. And I don't have the percentage, but I know that there's definitely an increase in productivity just by having that system first in place, right? Yeah. And then, there's other things that we can do, but bring it into the office, do it at home and then bring it in the office. I love working with teams of people getting an office set up. It really, that excitement and just when everybody's on the same page makes it easier to work and to collaborate together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we can't be with everybody individually in your own spaces. We can come together on Zoom for a 4-week program where we're going to be teaching you our secret sauce. We're teaching you exactly what we do for ourselves and for our clients. And you're actually going to be implementing it. You'll have time to implement with us live as well as homework in between. And at the end of that 4 weeks, you'll have your home office for the business of life, which will also work for your actual business if you have a business as well. And it's fun. We work together and we actually have it set up. Make sure you connect with Karen wherever you're listening from. We have it set up for different time zones. So I'm here on the East Coast, Karen's on the West Coast, and we have specialists in between as well. So we have, the live sessions are set up. So it is live with us, are set up to accommodate multiple time zones. So make sure you get with Karen and she'll share that information with you. And I think we'll have the link in the comments as well.
Yes, we will. Yeah, super fun. I'm so excited. I can't wait. So we start next week.
We do. We start next week. Yeah. And so again, because we have different days set up for different time zones, we have a Tuesday Eastern, we have a Friday, and then the following Monday is when you're doing it. So May 8th, I believe, is the day that you're leading for the West Coasties. It'll be 7 p.m. your time.
Yep.
And it'll be 10 p.m. on the East Coast. So if you're a late nighter on the East Coast, you can join in with Karen, or you can join in with me in the afternoon on Tuesday. And I believe the Friday one is done by one of our specialists, Kathy, who is in Central Time. So, and I think that's it. I don't want to mess up the times, but she's got one kind of midday on Friday. So they're all going to be week 1. So all of those sessions we just talked about, I'm leading week 1, Kathy's leading week 1, and Karen's leading week 1. On different days and times. And then the following week, we'll have week 2. So
yeah, I figured that 7 o'clock Pacific time is perfect. After a hard day at work in the office, come home, pour a glass of wine and kick back and learn.
Yeah. Yep, kick back and learn and do some actual, it's not just training, you're actually going to be physically doing things. You'll have homework at the end of each session. So yes, you can drink your wine, but you will also be make sure you get your homework assignment and do the work. So it's fun.
They get tools, they get things sent to them too. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I think it's great. It's such a great foundation and a great way to kick off and getting that initial foundation set for the home office for the business of life, carrying that into the hybrid office at work too. So
absolutely. All right. Well, let's cheers our coffee, even though it's late afternoon. It's after 5 Eastern and I'm still drinking coffee, but
I'm done. I sucked mine down. It was good. Okay. Thanks again, Andrea. I don't know when we're going to get together again. We'll have to look at the calendar. And
we'll look at the calendar. And you guys, anybody watching, tell us what topics you want us to talk about on the next one. So we come up with our own topics because we have fun and we love to talk about anything productivity and organizing related, workspace, functionality, productivity. But if there's something you would like us to address, let us know. Let Karen know in the comments, or you can send her a message.
And we'll cover that. Okay. All right. I'll see you later.
Bye. Bye.